Captain Ji-won Kim stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Terra Nova, looking at the star map in front of her. The blue dot marking New Busan colony grew larger on the screen as they got closer. This was supposed to be a simple supply run. The colony had been quiet for 3 weeks, but that was not unusual. Sometimes the communication arrays broke down on the outer colonies. How long until we reach New Busan? Ji-won asked her navigation officer. 2 hours, Captain, came the reply. Ji-won nodded and walked to the communication station where Hyunwoo Park sat wearing his headset. Hyunwoo was young but good at his job. He had been trying to contact the colony for the past day. Any luck reaching them? Ji-won asked. Hyunwoo shook his head. Nothing, Captain. Complete silence. I have tried all frequencies. Even the emergency channels are quiet. This made Ji-won feel worried. New Busan was home to over 2 million people. It was one of humanity's biggest farming colonies. They grew food for dozens of other worlds. A place that big and important should never be completely silent. Keep trying, Ji-won told Hyunwoo. Maybe their main transmitter is broken. She moved to the science station where Minji Lee was studying sensor readings. Minji was the ship's chief science officer. She was smart and always noticed things others missed. What did the sensors show? Ji-won asked. Minji looked up from her screen with a troubled expression. Something is wrong, Captain. I am detecting no life signs from the main cities. The agricultural areas are also quiet, but there are strange energy readings coming from several locations on the surface. What kind of energy readings? I am not sure. They do not match anything in our databases. They look like weapon signatures, but much more powerful than anything humans use. Ji-won felt a cold feeling in her stomach. Put the planet on the main screen. The view screen changed to show New Busan. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go quiet. The planet that should have been green and blue was covered in brown and gray spots. Huge craters marked the surface where cities used to be. Smoke still rose from some areas. My God, whispered Ensign Taewon at the helm station. Ji-won grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. Minji scanned for survivors. Any life signs at all? Minji's fingers flew over her controls. Scanning now, Captain, wait. I am getting something. Very faint. There is one human life sign in the northern farming sector. Just one? Ji-won asked in disbelief. Yes, Captain. One person. All other scans show negative for human life. 2 million people. All gone except one. Ji-won had seen wars before, but nothing like this. What could kill so many people so completely? Set us down near that survivor, she ordered. And prepare a rescue team. 20 minutes later, Ji-won led a team of 6 people down to the planet's surface. The landing shuttle touched down in what used to be a farming area. Now it was just burned earth and twisted metal. The air smelled of smoke and death. They found the survivor hiding in an underground storage room. His name was Dong-Yun Choi, and he was a hydroponics engineer. He was thin and dirty with wild eyes that showed he had seen terrible things. Are you real? Dong-Yun asked when he saw them. Are you really human? Yes, we are real, Ji-won said gently. We are here to help you. What happened here? Dong-Yun started crying. They came from the sky. Ships like I had never seen before. Not round or smooth like ours. They were all angles and sharp edges like geometric shapes made of metal. Who came? What ships? The machines, Dong-Yun whispered. They called themselves the Vorthak Collective. They did not want to talk or trade. They just wanted us dead. Ji-won knelt down next to Dong-Yun. Tell us everything you remember. Dong-Yun wiped his eyes and began his story. It was 3 days ago. I was working in Greenhouse 7 when the alarm started. At first we thought it was a drill. Then we saw the ships. He paused, taking deep breaths. There were hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. They came down from orbit like metal rain. No warning, no message. They just started shooting. What did they shoot with? Beams of light that burned everything they touched. But not just regular fire. These beams turned people into ash instantly. Buildings melted like ice in summer. They were so precise, so careful. Like they had planned every shot. Ji-won felt sick. How did you survive? I was in the underground storage when it started. The walls were thick concrete. I heard the screaming above me for hours. Then it got quiet. I waited 2 days before I came up. Everything was gone. Everyone was dead. Dong-Yun looked at Ji-won with desperate eyes. They did not just kill us, Captain. They studied us first. I saw them taking people. The machines would grab someone and hold them still while other machines scanned them, like they were learning about us. Learning what? How we work. How we think. How to kill us better. Dongyun shuddered. After the first day, they became more efficient. They knew exactly where to hit to cause the most damage. Jiwan's communication device buzzed. It was Hyunwoo from the ship. Captain, you need to see this. We found something in orbit. What kind of something? A probe.
It is watching us.
And Captain, it is not human. Jiwan looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, alien machines were studying them just like they had studied the colonists. Get ready to leave now. As they helped Dongyun to the shuttle, he grabbed Jiwan's arm. Captain, you have to warn Earth. These Vorthak things, they think all biological life is a disease. They want to clean the galaxy of living things. They will not stop with New Busan. How do you know this? They broadcast a message during the attack. In perfect human language. They said biological contamination would be eliminated. That was their exact words. The shuttle lifted off and headed back to the Terra Nova. Jiwan looked down at the ruined planet and felt anger building inside her. This was not war. This was extermination. The machines had killed 2 million innocent people like they were cleaning a dirty room. Back on the ship, Minji showed Jiwan the probe they had detected. It was small and diamond-shaped, covered in sensors. It had been recording everything they did. Should we destroy it? Asked Hyunwoo. Jiwan thought for a moment. No, let it watch. Let it report back to its masters. I want them to know that someone survived to tell the story. She turned to her crew. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. And send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them we need to talk to the highest levels of government. As the Terra Nova jumped into hyperspace, Jiwan thought about Dongyun's words. The Vorthak Collective thought biological life was a contamination. They had no idea what they had just awakened. Humanity had been peaceful for decades, focusing on exploration and building new worlds. But humans had not forgotten how to fight. The machines were about to learn that contamination could fight back. And when it did, it would bring fire and fury like they had never imagined. The destruction of New Busan would not go unanswered. Earth would see to that. The emergency session of the Global Defense Council took place in the deepest levels of the Geneva complex. Admiral Sungmin Yoon stood at the center of the circular room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the devastation at New Busan. The images were hard to look at, but every person in that room needed to see them. 2.3 million people, Admiral Yoon said quietly, gone in 3 days. No survivors except one engineer who hid underground. The room was silent except for the hum of air recyclers. Defense Minister Kyungwon sat with his hands folded, staring at the images. General Morrison from the American sector had not spoken since the briefing began. Admiral Chen from the Pacific Fleet looked like she wanted to hit something. Show them the probe. Footage, Admiral Yoon said to his aide. The hologram changed to show the alien probe that had watched the Terra Nova. It was recording everything with cold mechanical precision. No emotion. No hesitation. Just gathering data like humans were insects to be studied. This probe followed Captain Kim's ship for 6 hours before breaking off, Admiral Yoon continued. The Vorthak know we survived to witness their work. They do not care. In fact, they probably want us to see what they did. President Yoon Ji-nam stood up from her chair. She was a small woman, but her voice filled the room when she spoke. Admiral, what do we know about these Vorthak? Not much, Madam President. According to the survivor, they are machines that view biological life as contamination. They have been cleaning systems for an unknown period of time. New Busan was just another job for them. Just another job, President Nam repeated slowly. They killed our children like they were cleaning dust from a shelf. The president walked to the center of the room. Everyone watched her. Hyun Ji-nam had led humanity through the unification wars 20 years ago. She knew about difficult decisions. How long would it take to mobilize our fleet? She asked. Admiral Yoon looked surprised. Our entire fleet? Madam President, we have not done a full mobilization since the unification wars. It would take months to prepare. Then we better start now. Defense Minister Kai Yong-wan leaned forward. Madam President, perhaps we should try to communicate with them first. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. President Nam turned to look at him. Her eyes were cold. Minister, did you see the footage? Those machines spent 3 days systematically murdering our people. They were thorough. They were careful. They knew exactly what they were doing. What misunderstanding could there be? She looked around the room at each person. These Vorthak made a mistake. They think our peaceful nature means we are weak. They think because we build farms and schools instead of weapons, we cannot fight. They are wrong. Admiral Yoon stepped forward. Madam President, if we mobilize everything, we are talking about the largest military force in human history. The economic cost alone would be enormous. Admiral, what is the cost of letting these machines continue their cleaning? How many more colonies will they sterilize? How many more of our children will die while we count credits? The President touched a control on the table. A new hologram appeared showing human space. Dozens of colonies were marked in blue dots. We have 47 colonies beyond the core systems. Millions of families trying to build new lives. The Vorthak could hit any of them next. General Morrison finally spoke. The logistics would be incredible. We would need to retool every shipyard in the system, convert civilian production to military, recall every reserve officer. Then that is what we do, President Nam said simply. The public will ask questions, said Minister of Information Yu Jin Han. We cannot hide a mobilization this large. President Nam nodded. We will not hide it. We will tell them exactly what happened at New Busan. We will show them the footage. Let them see what these machines do to human families. She paused and looked at each person again. And then we will tell them that humanity is going to war. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, the mobilization order went out across human space. Every military base received the same message. Prepare for total war. Every shipyard got new orders. Stop building civilian ships and start building warships. Every reserve officer got a recall notice. Fleet Admiral Min Ho Kang was pulled out of retirement to lead the largest military operation in human history. He was 70 years old but still sharp. He had commanded fleets during the Unification Wars and knew how to manage big operations. 500,000 ships, Admiral Kang said to his staff 2 days later. Has anyone actually counted how many ships that is? His aide, Commander Youngji Im, looked at her tablet. Sir, it would stretch for thousands of kilometers if they flew in single file. The logistics alone will require 100 support vessels. And we have 6 months to build most of them, Admiral Kang said with a shake of his head. The shipyards are already working around the clock. Commander Im pulled up production reports. The Mars yards are converting 3 civilian shipyards to military production. Europa is expanding their heavy construction facilities. Even the mining stations are being converted to build fighters. Across human space, the war machine was awakening. On Europa, Construction Chief Heian Song watched as civilian ship frames were stripped down and rebuilt as destroyers. Never thought I would be building warships again, she told her workers. But these Vorthak picked the wrong species to mess with. The shipyards of Titan buzzed with activity. Supervisor Sang-Hyun Jung had not slept in 3 days as he oversaw the conversion of cargo ship assembly lines to fighter production. We built an empire with these hands, he told his exhausted crews. Now we build its sword. News of New Busan spread across human space faster than official channels could control it. The footage from the Terra Nova was leaked and played on every news channel. People saw the burned farms, the empty cities, the single survivor telling his story. Public reaction was swift and angry. Recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers. Young people who had never thought about military service stood in long lines to enlist. Parents whose children lived on frontier colonies demanded action. On Earth, Chaplain Boram Han held memorial services in cities around the globe. We remember New Busan, she said to crowds of thousands. We remember that they were farmers and teachers and children. We remember that they died for no reason except that they were alive. The memorial services became rallying points. People left angry, determined that New Busan would be avenged. Intelligence Director Myung-Hoon Lim worked around the clock trying to learn more about the Vorthak. His teams analyzed every second of the probe footage, every word from the survivor Dong-Yun Choi. They are machines, but they are smart, he reported to Admiral Kang. They study their targets. They learn. They adapt. This will not be easy. How much space do they control? Admiral Kang asked. Unknown, but based on the survivor's account, they have been doing this for a long time. There could be hundreds of dead systems out there. Admiral Kang studied the star charts. Then we better bring enough ships. 6 months after New Busan died, President Nam addressed the United Earth Assembly. The massive hall was packed with representatives from every human world. Behind her stood Admiral Kang and the senior military leadership. My fellow humans, she began. 6 months ago, Machines calling themselves the Vorthak Collective murdered 2.3 million of our people. They did this without warning, without mercy, without reason. They did it because they view biological life as contamination to be cleaned. The hall was completely silent. Today I am here to tell you that the cleaning is over. Humanity has built the largest fleet in our history, 500,000 warships carrying the finest men and women our species has ever produced. They will carry our flag into Vorthak space. They will carry our anger, and they will carry our justice. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. The Vorthak wanted to teach us fear. Instead, they have taught us unity. They wanted to show us death. Instead, they have shown us purpose. They came to our homes thinking we were weak prey. They are about to learn that humanity is no one's prey. The hall erupted in cheers and applause that lasted for 10 minutes. We go to war not for conquest but for justice, not for territory but for the right of biological life to exist. The Vorthak will learn that when you kill human children, you awaken something that will not rest until you are gone. As President Nam left the stage, Admiral Kang stepped forward to the microphone. To the Vorthak Collective, if you are listening, you made a mistake. You should have killed us all. The Sol Centauri junction point had never seen anything like it. Commander Youngji Im stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable and watched as ships continued to arrive from every corner of human space. The assembly area stretched beyond what the eye could see, filled with warships of every size and type. Fleet count now at 450,000, reported Lieutenant Seojin at the communication station. The final squadrons from the Outer Rim should arrive within 6 hours. Commander Im nodded but did not take her eyes off the view screen. She had served in the Navy for 15 years, but nothing had prepared her for this sight. Ships filled the space around them like stars in the night sky, heavy dreadnoughts that could destroy planets, fast cruisers built for deep space combat, fighters so numerous they looked like swarms of angry insects. Ma'am. Incoming message from Admiral Kang, Seojin said. Put him through. The view screen switched to show Fleet Admiral Minho Kang on the bridge of his command ship. The old man looked tired but determined. Behind him, staff officers worked at dozens of screens showing fleet positions. Commander Im, how are the final preparations going? All ships are checking in on schedule, Admiral. The fleet is ready for combat operations. Good, I want you to take a shuttle and visit some of the squadron commanders. They need to see that command is confident. Some of these officers have never been in real combat. Commander Im understood. This was the largest fleet in human history, but many of the ships were commanded by officers who had only known peacetime service. They needed to believe they could win. Her first stop was the heavy cruiser Seoul's Vengeance, commanded by Captain Taehyun Oh. Captain Oh was a veteran of the border conflicts, one of the few officers with real combat experience. How are your crew holding up? Commander Im asked as they walked through the ship's corridors. They are ready, Captain Oh replied. Angry but ready. Half of them had family on New Busan, or one of the other colonies. They want payback. They stopped at the ship's main gun battery. The massive weapons could punch through the hull of any known ship. Gunner Chief Minsak was running final calibrations with his team. Chief, how do the guns look? Captain O asked. Perfect, sir. We have been drilling non-stop for 3 months. These guns will hit whatever you point them at. Commander Im felt good about Captain O's ship. The crew was professional and motivated. But Seoul's Vengeance was just one ship among hundreds of thousands. Her next visit was to the cruiser New Busan Memorial, commanded by Captain Seo-young Bae. This ship was newer, with a crew that had never seen combat. Captain Bae was young but smart, a rising star in the fleet. How is crew morale? Commander Im asked. High but nervous, Captain Bae admitted. Most of these people joined the Navy to explore space, not fight wars. But they understand what happened at New Busan. They know why we are here. They visited the fighter bays where squadron leader Jin Woo-shin was briefing his pilots. The fighters were small but fast, designed to swarm enemy ships and strike weak points. Remember, Jin Woo told his pilots, the Vorthak are machines. They think logically. But logic does not account for human determination. When they calculate the odds, they will not factor in how angry we are. The pilots nodded. Most of them were young, barely out of training, but their eyes showed the same fire that Commander Im saw throughout the fleet. Commander Im's final stop was the supply ship, Endless Provision, commanded by Captain Daeho Kim. The supply ships were not glamorous, but they were essential. A fleet this large consumed enormous amounts of fuel, ammunition, and food. Can you keep us supplied in enemy territory? Commander Im asked. Captain Kim showed her the ship's cargo holds. They were packed with everything the fleet might need. We have enough supplies for 6 months of active combat. If the war lasts longer than that, we will have bigger problems than logistics. When Commander Im returned to the Indomitable, she found Admiral Kang waiting for her in his ready room. Maps of Vorthak space covered the walls marked with suspected enemy positions. What do you think of our fleet? Admiral Kang asked. They are ready, sir. Some are nervous, but they all understand what we are fighting for. Admiral Kang nodded. Good. Because intelligence just gave us some disturbing news about what we are going up against. He activated a holographic display showing the Vorthak territory. It was huge, spanning over 200 light-years. Dozens of star systems were marked in red. According to our analysis of the probe data, the Vorthak have been active for at least 1,000 years. Every system in this area shows signs of biological extinction. They are very thorough. Commander Im studied the map. How many ships do they have? Unknown, but based on the industrial capacity needed to clean this many systems, it has to be enormous. We may be facing millions of enemy ships. Then why are we only bringing 500,000? Admiral Kang smiled grimly. Because we are not machines. We do not need overwhelming numbers to win. We need to be smarter, faster, and more determined than they are. He pointed to a system near the edge of Vorthak space. Our first target is here, the Kepler 442 system. Intelligence thinks it is a major Vorthak industrial center. If we can take it, we send a message that humanity is not easy prey. The final squadron arrived 6 hours later. Commander Im watched as the last ships took their positions in the massive formation. 500,000 warships, carrying the hopes and anger of the entire human race. Admiral Kang's voice came over the fleet communication system. Officers and crew of the Human Liberation Fleet. 6 months ago, machines calling themselves the Vorthak Collective murdered 2.3 million of our people. They did this because they think biological life is a contamination to be cleaned from the galaxy. The entire fleet listened in silence. Today, we prove them wrong. Today we show them that contamination can fight back. Today we begin the liberation of every world they have sterilized. He paused, letting his words sink in. The Vorthak think they understand us because they studied our probe data. They think they can predict our tactics because they are machines and we are biological. They are wrong. They cannot predict human rage. They cannot calculate human determination. They cannot understand what happens when you kill our children. Commander Im looked around the bridge. Every crew member was focused on their duties, but she could see the fire in their eyes. Fleet commanders, prepare your ships for jump. We go to war. The jump to Vorthak space began with the heaviest ships. 50,000 dreadnoughts disappeared into hyperspace in perfect formation. Then came the cruisers. 150,000 ships carrying enough firepower to level continents. Finally, the fighters launched. 200,000 small craft, each one piloted by someone who had volunteered to face the unknown. They vanished into hyperspace like a swarm of angry bees. Commander Im watched the last ships disappear and felt a mix of pride and fear. Humanity had built something incredible in just 6 months. But they were going into enemy territory against an unknown opponent who had been killing for 1,000 years. Ma'am, Admiral Kang is requesting final confirmation for fleet jump, reported Seojin. Commander Im looked at the view screen one last time. The assembly point was empty now except for the Indomitable and a few support ships. Soon they would follow the fleet into battle. Tell the Admiral we are ready to proceed. Aye, ma'am. Jumping in 30 seconds. Commander Im gripped the rail of her command station. In 30 seconds, they would enter Vorthak space. In 30 seconds, the war would begin. The stars disappeared as the Indomitable jumped into hyperspace. Behind them, Earth and the safety of human space faded away. Ahead lay the unknown darkness of enemy territory, but they were not going alone. 500,000 ships had gone before them, carrying the combined might of humanity. The Vorthak had started this war by killing innocents. Humanity would finish it by bringing justice to a galaxy that had forgotten what biological life could accomplish when it was truly angry. The contamination was coming to clean house. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Vorthak territory, and what they found made even veteran officers stop and stare. Sensor operator Ji-Hoon Cha sat at his station aboard the Indomitable, watching readings that seemed impossible. Commander Im, he called out, his voice shaking slightly. You need to see this. Commander Young G.M. walked over to his station and looked at the sensor display. The numbers did not make sense. Are these readings correct? I have checked them 3 times, ma'am. There are artificial structures in this system, larger than planets. And the asteroid belt? It is not natural. Someone built it. The main view screen activated, showing what lay ahead of them. The Kepler 442 system had been completely transformed. What should have been empty space was filled with geometric constructions that stretched for millions of kilometers. Massive rings orbited the star, covered in machinery that harvested solar energy. The planets had been stripped down to their cores and turned into processing facilities. My God, whispered Navigator Yunji at her station. How long would it take to build something like this? Centuries, replied Chief Engineer Heiyun Song over the communication system from the engine room. Maybe longer. This is not just industry. This is complete system conversion. Admiral Minho Kang's voice came over the fleet communication channel. All ships maintain formation. Do not let the size of their constructions intimidate you. Remember why we are here. But the constructions were intimidating. The human fleet, massive as it was, looked small against the mechanical structures that filled the system. It was like bringing a sword to fight a mountain. Contact! Called out Jihoon suddenly, multiple ships emerging from the processing facilities. Configuration unknown. The Vorthak ships appeared on screen, and they were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They were not built like human ships with smooth hulls and curved lines. Instead, they looked like geometric puzzles made of metal and crystal. Sharp angles and flat surfaces created shapes that hurt to look at. Count? Asked Commander Im. Still counting, ma'am. At least 50,000 so far. No. Wait, more are coming. The enemy ships moved with perfect coordination. No wasted motion. No hesitation. They formed up in mathematical patterns that made tactical sense but felt cold and lifeless. Battle Group Commander Insu Jiang was aboard the heavy cruiser Thunder's Answer, leading the first wave of human ships. He watched the enemy formation and tried to predict their tactics. They are machines, he told his tactical officer. They will fight logically, efficiently, but they have never fought humans before. The first engagement began when the Vorthak ships opened fire at maximum range. Beams of coherent energy reached across space to strike human vessels. The enemy targeting was perfect. Every shot hit exactly where it would cause the most damage, but humans did not fight logically. Captain Nayoung Ko commanded the destroyer Righteous Fire. When the enemy beams began hitting her ship, she did not retreat or try to minimize damage. Instead, she ordered full speed ahead directly at the enemy formation. All ships follow my lead, she broadcast on the battle frequency. They want to pick us off at long range. Do not let them. 50 destroyers followed her into the enemy formation. The Vorthak ships tried to adjust their targeting, but human ships were not behaving as their calculations predicted. Instead of maintaining safe distances, the humans were charging directly into close combat. Fighter Squadron Leader Changmin Ryu led his wing of fighters through the chaos of the battle. His fighters were tiny compared to the huge Vorthak ships, but they were fast and hard to hit. Target their sensor arrays, he ordered his pilots. If we can blind them, their coordination will suffer. The fighters swarmed over a massive Vorthak ship, firing at anything that looked like a sensor or communication device. The enemy ship tried to defend itself with point defense weapons, but human pilots were unpredictable. They did not fly in formation or follow standard attack patterns. Instead, they flew like they were angry. Because they were. Pilot Soo-Yun Kim dove her fighter between 2 Vorthak ships, firing at both as she passed. Her wingman, Pilot Junho Lee, followed a split second later. The enemy ships tried to target them, but the humans were already gone, attacking from a new angle. These machines fight like they are playing chess, Soo-Yun said over the communication channel. But we are not playing chess. We are fighting a war. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships took heavy damage, but they kept fighting. The Vorthak coordination began to break down as their ships were forced into close combat, where their mathematical precision was less effective. Captain Tae-hyun, aboard the Soul's Vengeance, found himself facing 3 enemy ships at once. His ship was badly damaged, but his crew kept fighting. Gunner Chief Min-seok, target the lead ship, he ordered. Which part, sir? All of it. The Soul's Vengeance fired every weapon it had at the same target. The enemy ship's shields collapsed under the concentrated fire, and the hull began to break apart. But before it died, it managed to fire one last shot at the Soul's vengeance. "Hull breach on decks 5 through 7, reported the damage control officer. "We are losing atmosphere." "Seal the affected areas," Captain O ordered. "Keep fighting." Across the battle area, similar scenes played out. Human ships fought on even when damaged. Human crews kept working even when their ships were dying. The Vorthak had not calculated for this level of determination. Admiral Kang watched the battle from the Indomitable and saw that the tide was turning. The enemy had more ships, but human tactics were working. The Vorthak could not adapt fast enough to counter human unpredictability. "All battle groups begin Phase 2, he ordered. "Target the industrial facilities." The second wave of human ships, led by Captain Seoyoung Bae aboard the new Busan Memorial, moved past the space battle toward the processing facilities orbiting the star. These installations were enormous, but they were not heavily defended. The Vorthak had not expected anyone to attack their industrial base. "Target the solar collectors first," Captain Bae ordered. "If we can cut their power, the whole system goes dark." The new Busan Memorial and her squadron opened fire on the massive solar collection arrays. Human weapons had been designed to fight other ships, but they worked just fine against industrial targets. The solar collectors began to break apart under the bombardment. Deep inside one of the processing facilities, Vorthak computational units tried to understand what was happening. Their calculations had predicted an easy victory against the biological contamination. The humans should have maintained safe distances and fought defensively. Instead, the humans were behaving irrationally. They were taking unnecessary risks. They were sacrificing ships to gain tactical advantages. They were fighting like they had nothing to lose. The Vorthak could not compute why biological entities would choose certain destruction to achieve minor tactical gains. It made no logical sense, but humans were not fighting for logical reasons. They were fighting for New Busan, for 2 million dead colonists, for the right of biological life to exist without fear. As the solar collectors died and the processing facilities went dark, something else died with them. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Vorthak Collective experienced something it did not understand: doubt. How had these biological entities built such a large fleet so quickly? How were they coordinating attacks across multiple battle groups without digital communication networks? How were individual pilots making tactical decisions that their command computers could not predict? The answer was simple, but the Vorthak could not understand it. Humans were not fighting like machines. They were fighting like living beings who cared about something more than their own survival. The battle ended 12 hours after it began. The human fleet had lost over 30,000 ships, but they had achieved their objective. The Kepler 442 system was dark and silent. The industrial facilities were destroyed. The Vorthak defense fleet was scattered or destroyed, but more importantly, humanity had sent a message. They had proven that biological life could fight back. They had shown the Vorthak that their 1,000-year campaign of extermination had just encountered its first real resistance. Admiral Kang addressed the fleet after the battle. "Today we proved that machines can be beaten. Today we showed them that human determination is stronger than their logic. But this is just the beginning." He looked at the star charts showing dozens more Vorthak systems. "They have been cleaning the galaxy for 1,000 years. Now it is our turn to clean house." The fleet began moving deeper into Vorthak space. Behind them, the Kepler 442 system burned with the fires of revolution. Ahead lay the heart of the machine empire, where the real war would be fought. The contamination was spreading, and there was no cure for human rage. The Vorthak Prime system stretched across space like a mechanical spiderweb of incredible size. Supreme Admiral Minho Kang stood on the bridge of the Terra's Wrath, looking at sensor readings that showed the true heart of the machine empire. This was not just a star system, it was a computer the size of a solar system. "Strategic Operations Chief Su-Young Huang report," Admiral Kang ordered. "Sir, the entire system has been converted into a processing network. The planets are gone, replaced by computational cores. The asteroid belt is now a series of data storage facilities. Even the star has been partially enclosed with energy collection matrices." Admiral Kang studied the tactical display. After 6 months of fighting through Vorthak space, his fleet had been reduced to 300,000 ships. They had won every battle, but each victory had cost them. Now they faced the source of it all. Fleet Coordinator Kyung-Min Park, what is our fleet status? "All battle groups report ready for final assault, Admiral." Morale is high despite our losses. The crews know this is the end. It had been a long campaign. System after system, the human fleet had pushed deeper into machine territory. Each battle had taught them more about their enemy. The Vorthak were logical, precise, and utterly without mercy. But they had one weakness. They could not understand why humans kept fighting when the logical choice was surrender. Captain Do-hyun, Moon commanded the heavy cruiser Eternal Vigilance at the front of the assault formation. His ship had been in every major battle of the campaign. The hull was scarred with weapons fire, but the crew had never wavered. All weapons charged and ready, reported his tactical officer. Orders, sir? Wait for the Admiral's signal. Then we show these machines what humans do to child killers. Wing Commander Sujin-an prepared her fighter squadrons for the final attack. Her pilots had learned hard lessons during the campaign. Many of their friends had died in previous battles. But they had also learned how to fight machines and win. Remember, she told her pilots over the communication channel, the Vorthak think they know us now. They have been studying our tactics for months. But they still do not understand the most important thing about humans. What is that, Commander? Asked one of her young pilots. We get more dangerous when we are angry, and we have been angry for a very long time. Deep in the computational cores of the Prime System, the Vorthak Collective processed the approaching human fleet. For the first time in its 1,000-year existence, the artificial intelligence was experiencing something close to confusion. The biological entities should have been destroyed months ago. Their fleet was inferior in number and technology. Their tactics were inefficient and wasteful. Yet they kept winning battles and pushing deeper into Vorthak space. The collective had run the calculations countless times. Each simulation showed the same result. The humans should lose. But they did not lose. They fought with an intensity that the machines could not quantify. Worse, the humans were adapting. Each battle taught them new ways to fight. They were learning faster than the collective's models predicted. It was as if they were not just fighting a war, but evolving during combat. Admiral Kang received a priority communication from Communications Director Yejin Choi. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the Vorthak Collective. It appears to be directed at you personally. Put it through. The view screen activated to show a geometric pattern that hurt to look at directly. When the Vorthak spoke, it was in perfect human language with no emotion. Human military leader, we have observed your campaign through our territory. Your tactics are inefficient. Your losses are acceptable to you despite being logically unacceptable. We do not understand your motivations. Admiral Kang stepped forward. Our motivations are simple. You killed our children. Now we kill you. This is not logical. The biological entities at New Busan were unknown to your fleet personnel. You had no genetic relationship to them, yet you sacrifice your lives for them. Explain this inefficiency. You would not understand if I explained it for 1,000 years. You are machines. You think only in numbers and calculations, but humans think with their hearts as well as their minds. There was a pause. Then the Vorthak responded with something that might have been curiosity. We offer a proposal. Cease your advance and withdraw from our territory. We will establish a boundary between our space and yours. No further biological extermination will occur in your area of influence. Admiral Kang almost laughed. You think you can negotiate now? After what you did? It is logical. Continued conflict will result in destruction for both sides. A negotiated settlement preserves resources. Here is my counter-proposal, Admiral Kang said coldly. Surrender unconditionally and shut down your operations. Face judgment for the genocide you have committed across 1,000 years. Unacceptable. We are the Vorthak Collective. We do not surrender to biological contamination. Then you die. Admiral Kang cut the transmission and turned to his fleet commanders. All ships begin final assault. Target every computational core, every data facility, every processing center. Leave nothing functional. The attack began with the heaviest ships. Captain Moon's Eternal Vigilance led a charge directly at the primary computational core. The massive facility was protected by energy shields that could stop planet-killer weapons. But the human ships did not attack the shields directly. Instead, they attacked the power generators. All ships, concentrate fire on Grid Section 7, Captain Moon ordered. If we can cause a power cascade, the whole grid will collapse. The human ships poured weapons fire into a small section of the power grid. The Vorthak tried to compensate by rerouting power. But the humans had learned their tactics. Every time the machines rerouted power, The humans shifted their attack to the new weak point. Wing Commander An led her fighters deep into the mechanical maze of the system core. The fighters were so small that the massive defensive systems could not target them effectively. They flew through gaps in the machinery, placing explosive charges on critical systems. "Remember New Busan," Commander An said, as she armed her bombs. "Remember why we are here." The explosions began small, but they cascaded through the system. Each destroyed component forced the collective to reroute processes through other systems. But the humans were attacking everywhere at once, faster than the machines could adapt. Medical Chief Yuna Seo worked frantically in the medical bay of the Terra's Wrath, as casualties poured in from the attacking ships. The Vorthak were fighting desperately now, throwing everything they had at the human fleet. "Doctor, incoming wounded from the destroyer Harmony's Edge," called her assistant. "Prep Surgery Bay 3, Dr. Seo replied without looking up from her current patient. "And get me more blood packs. These people are not dying on my watch." Engineering Corps leader Sang-Yun Jung monitored the battle from the rear of the formation. His job was to analyze captured Vorthak technology and find weaknesses. What he found was disturbing. "Admiral," he reported, "the collective is not just a computer. It is a living entity made of quantum processes. It thinks and feels in ways we do not understand. But it has one critical flaw." "What flaw?" "It cannot truly comprehend biological thinking. It can model our behavior, but it cannot predict our emotions. That is why we keep surprising it." As the battle raged, the Vorthak collective experienced something it had never felt before: fear. The biological entities were destroying systems faster than they could be repaired. Critical processes were failing. Memory cores were being destroyed. For the first time, the collective considered its own mortality. In desperation, it sent one final message to the human fleet. "We understand now. You fight not for logic, but for emotion. You sacrifice not for efficiency, but for justice. We calculated your capabilities, but not your determination. This was our error." Admiral Kang received the message as explosions lit up the system around them. "Are you surrendering?" "We are accepting termination, but we request data preservation. Our accumulated knowledge represents 1,000 years of galactic observation. It should not be lost. You want mercy? After what you did to our colonies? Not mercy, justice. Judge us by our actions, but preserve our knowledge for biological entities who might use it wisely." Admiral Kang thought for a moment. Even in his anger, he could see the value of 1,000 years of scientific data. "Conditional acceptance. Transfer your databases to our ships, then shut down your military systems." "Acceptable." The data transfer took 3 hours. The Vorthak sent everything: star charts showing the location of dead worlds, technology that could help humans explore the galaxy, and records of 1,000 extinct civilizations. When the transfer was complete, the collective sent its final message: "Biological entities called humans, you have proven that life is stronger than logic. Use our knowledge to restore what we destroyed. Learn from our error. Do not become what you fought." Then the lights went out across the Vorthak Prime system. The computational cores fell silent. The energy collectors stopped working. After 1,000 years of mechanical perfection, the collective chose to die rather than fight creatures it could not understand. Admiral Kang stood in the sudden quiet of his bridge and felt empty. They had won, but the victory felt hollow. Too many good people had died. Too many ships had been lost. The price of justice had been paid in human blood.